I'm Kevin Jacobsen of Gold Derby here with Vanessa Bayer, the star and co-creator of I Love That For You on Showtime. So just to start off here, I would imagine that this may have been a little bit tricky to sell as a premise, the idea of this woman who lies about having cancer in order to keep her job at this home shopping network. That's not everything that the show is, but that's sort of where it starts. But I guess in the spirit of this show, how exactly were you able to sell the concept?
Well, I think we really wanted to sell this concept based on sort of the really fun, kind of hopefully laugh out loud things about it. One being, we just absolutely love the world of home shopping and think it's such a fun and interesting world. And I've been watching, again, kind of obsessed with home shopping since I was a kid. So just that would be a really fun, interesting place to do a show that's a comedy. And then also, a lot of this story is based on or inspired by my real life story of having childhood leukemia. And the idea that, like, when I was sick, of course, it was like a difficult time, but I also really exploited it for the perks and like the special treatment that I got. And just, I mean, that's something that really, I've always wanted to do something about, because I think that I don't think it's unique to me. I think it's something that a lot of people can relate to. Like, when you go through a difficult time, you do get this special treatment. And then when that time is over or people have moved on from it, it's sort of like, well, where's my special treatment? So I think bringing those worlds together and pitching that, I think people, again, we really focused on the sort of fun and funny of both of those things. Although especially childhood cancer, you have to bring out the funny. It doesn't spell itself out,
There. Yeah.
if you will.
Yes. Well, I think some of the most fun parts of the show actually are just getting to see the products that are being sold and the sort of live on air component. I was speaking with your co-creator, Jeremy Beiler, the other day, and he said that you got to like tour QVC and see how the sausage was made, basically. What did you learn just from doing that sort of like firsthand research that maybe you didn't know
Well, it
beforehand?
was just when we toured it, it was incredible to see what a huge operation it is. I mean, we knew that it was like a very successful, place, but just to see, as soon as you enter, you see these screens of all the international QVCs and in the different countries, and just to see like kind of the breadth and how huge it is, and just and to see, we went to the sets and we saw the hosts are sort of like they're listening in their ear to like what's selling, and then they're also watching a monitor of what's currently happening and a monitor of what they're about to show. And actually, a couple of weeks ago, I got to go to QVC and actually sell on QVC, which was incredible. And like getting to do what they do, it was just so, I was so nervous that I was going to like mess up and like lose them a bunch of money. But it was just it's so incredible to be there, and just the hosts make it seem so easy what they're doing, but what they're doing is actually so involved. Everything about that plate, it's just really, it's mesmerizing when you watch it on TV, but it's also kind of mesmerizing to be in that space and see kind of how it's done.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of the audience may be used to seeing you as part of an ensemble or as a kind of supporting cast member, but can you talk about sort of shouldering the responsibility here of being the lead and just sort of how different of an experience that is from what you've done before?
Yeah, I mean, it was really, it was definitely different from what I've done in the past to be the lead, and to sort of be writing it and doing all of that stuff at the same time was definitely a lot of responsibility, but it was also really fun because I really got to sort of put my mark on all parts of and my ideas into all parts of the process. And it was really cool to get to be leading this. But I will say, the ensemble that we do have on this show is so incredible. I mean, Molly
Yes.
Shannon is so incredible, Jennifer Lewis so incredible, and everybody from Matt Rogers to Poonam Patel. It's like just it's like just a every single role. We were so thrilled with the cast. So as much as I am, technically leading, it's like this does still feel like really an ensemble comedy.
Right. Well, again, we're probably also used to seeing you in a more, broadly comedic light, which
Right.
you do get to do here, of course, but there is also some real like vulnerability, in these more tender moments and like those moments of connection between you and Molly Shannon and just like these beautiful little one-on-one scenes that you have with a lot of the characters, these more dramatic moments. Was that kind of daunting at all to really go to that more vulnerable place and maybe not lean into any of your sort of comedy stylings?
Right. No, I mean, I really enjoyed it. It was really fun to get to sort of like do all kinds of, play all of those different emotions. And
Mm.
I have to say, again, this ensemble is so great. I mean, doing those emotional scenes with Molly, it was like, she's so incredible to work with. I mean, she's obviously incredible off camera too. She's such a lovely, wonderful person. But just to get to like be in these scenes with her and seeing her like welling up with tears in her eyes would make it so easy for me to do it. It was just like, really a lot of it was like me learning from these other people too, and these scenes with Jennifer where Jennifer was being, I mean, there were times when I would have a super intense scene with Jennifer and my goal in my head would be to make Jennifer laugh and see if I could get her to break like while we were shooting, which wasn't always the best thing to do, like in terms of respecting everyone's time, but I like really love to get to do these scenes with these like true masters of their craft. It was like, sorry to say master of craft, that feels like very intense, but I just feel like they really taught me, Jennifer and,
Right.
and Molly in particular, but all of the cast, they're all such strong actors too, that it actually really does, I guess I didn't realize it really does make your job easier because they're so in the moment that it's like hard to not join them there.
Right. Yeah, I was definitely curious about the connection with Molly. Obviously, the you have SNL in common, but I was just wondering how much of what we see on the show of, Joanna really admiring Jackie so much is kind of just like easy for you because you admire
True.
Molly Shannon.
Absolutely. There's something very meta going on with the show where we like,
Mm.
of course I loved watching Molly on SNL when I was younger, and then to get to work on SNL like she did, and we were never there at the same time, but was such a dream come true. And so the fact that this character loves Molly's character from this home shopping network and then gets to work there herself, there's definitely a parallel thing going on, and it was, I didn't have to act to be like a huge fan of hers. So yeah, it was definitely, it couldn't have been easier to play
Mm.
someone who's like an enormous fan of hers, because that is such a true thing in my real life.
Right. Well, I think it's always important to have someone like that in your sort of work environment, someone that you do have that connection with. And obviously we see some ups and downs with that dynamic later on in the season, but how much have you had certain people like that in either SNL or on this job or other jobs, like mentors or just sort of coworkers or castmates that you felt like you could just sort of talk to and be real with and maybe blow off steam or whatever?
I mean, I think that at SNL, at this job, it's like everybody, um, it's nice because I've been able to work with all of these people who are just really great people who I really trust, and who I really feel like I can be myself around. And so like I just think that like that's, I mean, when we were hiring writers or casting the show, we wanted it to just be full of like people who we love. And so I feel like I can be real with like all of these all of these people, and that's really nice. I
Yeah.
don't know if I answered your question. I think I did.
No, did you have
Okay.
anyone specifically? You don't have to like mention them by name, but like you did have like certain people.
Well, I mean, Jeremy and Jesse, we were
Right.
together all the time. So we were constantly, and if issues arose or anything, I didn't want to necessarily talk to all the cast about it, because there was like,
Yeah.
for the first time I had to be sort of like in charge. So I didn't want to be like, I wanted them to be like, everything's fine, everything's great, which it
Right. Right.
mostly was.
Right.
But
That's fair.
yeah, but it was nice to have Jeremy and Jesse there
Mhm.
to, figure things out with.
Yeah. Well, speaking to maybe more the your producer hat, I guess. I do want to mention we do get some great sort of, I would say, Vanessa Bayerisms throughout the show, and your sort of line delivery is so unique and that kind of awkwardness. I always love when your character is sort of trying to be like cool, sort of like a in the know kind of person, but it's so just forced the way she's expressing
Right.
herself. Just
Right.
curious how much those kinds of looser moments are just sort of baked into the script, and how much is just stuff that you're thinking of on the day that might be funny for a certain scene.
It's really a mix, because sometimes we'll
Hmm.
be writing and, like, when I was at SNL, Jeremy and I used to write this Dawn Lazarus, this weather woman character that was
Yes.
sort of based on the fact that I was always sort of talking, and instead of trailing off, I would just keep talking, but in a way that, like, the words were versions of trailing off. And so I think when we were writing this, we would sometimes write sentences that literally sounded like that like made no sense. But then sometimes, when we had time, which we would often improvise and stuff. And so sometimes it's just me trying different versions of a woman who gets sort of um can't really talk, just like what I just did, which was not on purpose.
Hap.
Ah,
Right.
exactly. Thank you.
Yes. Well, I think what's also interesting is that just from the first episode, we see her really kind of struggling with her first big on air moment. And part of me was wondering, like, is she always going to be kind of clumsy and messy? But then, like, as it turns out, like, she's actually really good at her job, and in a way that feels still authentically like her. So I guess, why do you think she is as that good at selling?
I think it's almost like a superpower. When we were
Mm.
coming up with the show and creating this character, it's sort of a superpower she has, because she watched so much home shopping when she was younger. And and I will say, I personally watched a lot when I was younger, and I felt like when we started working on the show, like the language of home shopping just came back like riding a bicycle. Like, it was just the way they talk about stuff and the way they touch stuff, and all of it just felt so natural. Like, because I just watched so much of it when I was little. But I think similarly, Joanna watched a lot of it when she was little, and she also really is someone who I think got a lot out of it, like the way that a lot of audiences watch it for comfort, or because they feel like they have a friend in the host. Like, I think that because Joanna was on that side of it as well, it's sort of like, this is a very Hollywood way of saying it, but like, it's sort of like when people who are like directors have acted and they like get the but this is, Gold Derby. So Hollywood,
Yeah,
here we are.
exactly.
But 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 so I think because she's been like a recipient of like what the hosts and what the channel can do, and because now she's like she's on camera, she just sort of has like so many things in her life have like combined to make her like this super host. So even though, as you said, she might not be as graceful off camera as she is, on camera, the reason she can do that on camera is just because it's like this thing that she's learned in so many different, in like an emotional way, in a
Right.
technical way. She's just really become familiar with it.
Right. Well, I would imagine that there's a little bit of overlap between being the host of a home shopping network like this and just doing live TV, as you did
Yes,
for 7 years on SNL. Can you
for
speak to just
sure.
the nerves of live TV, and maybe even to take us back to those first few weeks for you on SNL back in the day, like what that was like, that anxiousness of knowing, like, this is my big opportunity, trying not to blow it. Like, what is that feeling?
Yes, totally. I mean, Jeremy and I, worked together at SNL. Jesse worked at SNL. Like, we all sort of felt that there were definitely parallels between SNL and the home shopping network on our show, and home shopping in general. And even like Joanna's first day when she comes in, and she's so like nervous and excited to meet all the other like on-air hosts and everything. I mean, that that really happened to me when I started on SNL. I just remember going in and meeting like Andy Samberg and Abby Elliott, and being like, just them being like, "Hey, how's it going?" And me being like, "What?" And just having to sort of act like it was normal, and just be like, "Oh, I guess these are my coworkers now." And I remember like Bill Hader took us out to dinner, and Fred Armisen emailed me to be like, "Welcome." Like, it's, let me, like, just everyone was so nice, but it was just like trying to act normal with them and be like, cool, like I'll, and just I still remember us, all the new people when we got dinner. Bill took us all out to dinner, and we were all just like, what are you guys gonna order? No one knew what to say. So I just feel like that thing of like trying to act like this is normal when you're around people who as like these television personalities was really intimidating for me. And just like you said, it's just like trying to do a good job at this place that means so much to you. And so there's like it's one thing to try and do good because you just want to do good, but also again, like it just a place that's been so important to you for your whole life. You just don't want to mess it up.
Right. And to be clear, I don't think that you did mess it up. So
Thank you so much.
history was kind.
So much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, just as we wrap up here, I mean, this is clearly a big passion project for you, I would say, where you're starring, you created the show, you producer, writer, you wear a lot of different hats. So now, having done just this first season, what would you say were maybe some of the challenges that you maybe didn't anticipate with just having all these responsibilities? And then just to maybe end on a positive note, what did you find to be sort of the most rewarding about producing this?
I think one of the challenges was just there were a lot of decisions to be made. And it was, always trying to make the right decision and always trying to sort of do the thing that felt like it would make the show the best show it could be. I think on the flip side of that, we're all just sort of like making decisions, and like we're all doing our best. Like nobody really, in a lot of cases, I learned like nobody really knows the answer. So you just sort of have to say, you just have to keep moving forward. And that's in some ways was very comforting to me, was to find that like a lot of times there's no real wrong decision. You just have to like make a decision, if that makes sense. So just learning to sort of like in our show, not to be too full circle, but we're all just sort of like faking it till we make it a little bit, and just trying to like do a good job, and everyone's sort of always learning. And you get better and better as time goes by. But we all are gonna, some of our choices will be great, some won't be as good, but I think that this show is full of good choices, I would say.
Yeah.
So
I think that is a beautiful note for us to end on
thank you.
here.
Thank
Actually,
you.
yes. Well, for those of you watching, subscribe for more interviews and go to goldderby.com to make your Emmy predictions. Thank you so much, Vanessa.
Thank you so much, Kevin, and congratulations on a wonderful run at Gold Derby.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.